Good morning, everybody. It's so nice to see so many people out bright and early, and I know that for some people this is early. So I want to welcome everyone this morning. I've got a wonderful guest this month, Jordan Kadosh, who is the new regional director of the ADL of Heartland. I want to say Midwest, but of Heartland. And before we hear from him and I do more of an introduction, you know that I always like to know who's in the room as well. And so we're going to go around, and last month we said how long you've lived in Olivet and you introduced yourself. This month I'd like you to say who you introduce yourself and what's your favorite spot in Olivet. So I'm going to start the mic with Carlos, but that could get you in trouble.
Good morning. My name is Carlos Trejo. I'm the Director of Planning for the City of Olivet, and my favorite spot is my office.
Okay, my name is Lueda Buckles, and my favorite spot is when they get it fixed at Stacy Park.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Miller. I live in Oak Estates and I'm a realtor with Compass Realty Group. So exciting to keep up on the happenings here. And right now, my favorite spot, I have a little back porch and it's just so pleasant out there. I have a box fan that helps on the hottest days. But we have so many lovely birds. So love that.
Good morning. My name is Vaughn Morrill, and I've been a citizen of Olivet almost 40 years. My favorite spot is our home at 5A Dealman. I like to sit in front of our home.
Good morning. My name is Susan. I've been, well, I guess you didn't want to know that, but 32 years. Nevertheless, my favorite spots are the gardens, the community gardens. And so if anyone wants to volunteer for OIB, we meet usually every Saturday morning at one of the community gardens. So come on out. Oh, Olivet in Bloom.
Olivet in Bloom is great. Please support it financially as I do. I'm Greg Yowitz. I've been a resident of Olivet almost 30 years. My favorite spot recently has been standing at Olive Crossing, watching the giant crane lift the giant panels of concrete to build a garage. So it's more fun for me there.
My name is Alan Robbins. I live in Chevy Chase, been there for 42 years. And I don't have a favorite place because I have two dogs and we walk pretty much all around Olivet.
Keith Hawes, lives here about 40 years, live on Bond Hills. My favorite spot is my backyard. The reason we bought the house is because of the backyard.
My name's Roy. I'm an alumni, but just getting into all of it makes me feel good. And that's why I keep coming back. I just love being here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Leslie Ricard. We built a house here almost 40 years ago, and since Stacy Park is down for the count a little bit more, my favorite spot is my backyard.
My name is Sherilyn Krell. I live on Marbrook Lane, just down the road a piece. And my husband and I retired to Olivet in 2005, and we inherited my late parents' home that they bought in 1970 when they got married. And my favorite place is my kitchen baking.
Hi, I'm Jim Person. I'm just a kid. I've only been here 27 years. And my favorite place in Olivet is the pond at Stacy Park.
My name is Pat Wooten, and I think my favorite place is our home. I just like being there with John. But other than that, I would think Stacy Park because we like to walk.
My name is Jerry Newell. It's me on the video. That just proves who I am because I'm pretty much a disturber of peace. Anyway, I've been here 61 years. I live down on Alden Drive. Die in my house. My favorite spot is, as some of the other people have said, is my backyard. And I watch all the wildlife and but I do have another favorite spot, but I won't mention where that is. I think Rick knows where it is. Thank you.
Name is Rick Knox. I was an employee for 41 years and I've been a resident for 35 plus years. My favorite part is the entire community. I enjoy the diversity in this community. I enjoy the partnership between the businesses and the residents, and I enjoy the sidewalks that go throughout the community and also through our parks, and we continue to build more sidewalks. So I'm very anxious to see that and look forward to walking the community.
Hello, I'm Bridget Waters. My favorite place here in the city is sitting at my desk.
My name is Tanya Welch, and my favorite place in the city would be Stacy Park.
I'm Beverly Tucker Knight, the Parks and Recreation Director, and Chief Knox stole what I was going to say, but I will enlarge on that and say that I too love the whole community, and we have a gorgeous park system in our pathways, and those are my favorite parts, and meeting the people out in the parks.
Morning, my name is Lieutenant Lemmy. I've been employed with the police department for 31 years. And my favorite place is any of the parks because that's where I get my exercise when I can.
Barb Sunday, I'm the city manager, and my favorite place is some of the new trails that are in Stacy Park and Morrison Park. And if you haven't been on those yet, you need to find them and try them out.
And our retired chief and newly elected council member stole my line as well. So Bev, I ditto to you. But I also have I would say my backyard too, because we've got a lot of action with the bees, and we have beehives, and we just bottled 8 gallons of honey this weekend, and and the birds are just amazing right now. So Jordan is you've never lived in Olivet, but Jordan was born in St. Louis, and spent some of his formative years away from St. Louis, but then returned to go to Washington University. And I knew him as a toddler, and then we reconnected when he was coming to Washington University. And I'm just so thrilled. And I know it sounds funny to say I'm proud of you, but I've known you your whole life, so I'm really proud of you because this is really an amazing position that you've taken over. So Jordan is the new regional director of the ADL of Heartland. ADL is the leading anti-hate organization in the world. It was founded in 1913. Its timely mission is to stop the defamation of the Jewish people and to secure justice and fair treatment for all. Jordan previously worked in the textile recycling industry, where he mostly recently held the position of vice president of business development at White House in Shapiro. Prior to his private sector career, Jordan spent a decade in Missouri politics. As a consultant, he developed and implemented fundraising campaigns, oversaw ethics compliance, provided data management services, and authored comprehensive campaign plans. And when I was meeting with Jordan to talk about today, I was reminding him of one of his first campaigns he worked at, because we drafted myself and my kids to be there, and I think we still have those t-shirts. Jordan is a former regional director at the Missouri Coalition for Life-Saving Cures, where he focused on organizing advocates for stem cell research at the height of the controversy surrounding the issue. His work for candidate campaigns includes being an Obama alum, statewide finance director, and campaign manager for several state and local races. Jordan just returned to St. Louis with his wife and son after 4 years of living in New Orleans. So welcome home to St. Louis and welcome to this new position. It's really exciting to have you back in St. Louis. One of the questions I told you I was going to ask this morning earlier was what drew you to this position?
Thank you. And thank you for having me. And yes, I took the job so I can move home. I wouldn't want to do this job anywhere else. St. Louis has always been home. Even when we didn't live here, I went to Sabra and the Lake of the Ozarks. Most of my friends are from here. And so, yeah, it was just a thrill to come back. My folks came back up here about 10 years ago. So they were a little bit excited that we brought a 2-year-old home too. So a lot of good reasons, but also the opportunity to do this work. Am I going to keep going? You have more questions? How's this work?
So Jordan prepared this morning. We usually do a Q&A, but Jordan prepared a PowerPoint that he's going to share with all of us. And I thought that that was more interesting than having me drill him with questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Jordan and he can do it from here or over at the stand with the mic. So whichever is easiest.
Sorry, I don't know when slides became socially acceptable, but apparently it happened. So I came prepared, but thank you for having me. And just a real quick brief overview of who the ADL is and what we do, especially here in the community. As Maxine said, our timeless mission is to stop the defamation of the Jewish people and secure justice and fair treatment to all. It's an integrated mission. One thing does not happen without the other. And so while we are founded as an offshoot of the B'nai B'rith organization in 1913, over 100 years ago, really the idea is that if we cannot secure justice and fair treatment to all, that it will not happen to the people who, for the reason that we were founded in the first place. What we do specifically is we speak out and fight against anti-Semitism, all forms of bigotry, bias, and discrimination as we encounter them. We also counter extremism, as in domestic extremism, and we also work to combat cyber hate as well. This is why we do it. It's called our pyramid of hate. And you'll notice at the bottom, there's just biased attitudes as the foundation of our pyramid of hate. And that's something that we all have. It's inherent, and bias is implicit. And it's not something we can escape. It's something we can be aware of and learn not to act on. But it's something that we're all with. And right at the tippy top of the pyramid is genocide. And somewhere in between biased attitudes and escalating acts that eventually turn to violence is the thing that we're trying to avoid, a systematic elimination of somebody, of people, right? And the goal is that by interrupting this escalating pyramid, we can stop bias and discrimination from turning into violence. How we do it is pretty straightforward. We investigate, we educate, and we advocate. And what that looks like is if, for example, a concrete real world example, when a white supremacist organization puts a sticker up on a light pole sign outside of a grocery store in South County, and someone reports it to ADL, it comes to our office, and we are able to get pictures, make sure that really happened, verify that it's there. We're able to go into the property records. We'll investigate it. We'll look up who the registered agent is at the place, get a hold of the owner of the property, let them know what happened. We're educating them on what happened, that it's there, why it's a problem, and why it needs to be dealt with. And we advocate for its removal to make sure that any of the private businesses that have security cameras on the premises are able to go back through them and review them to see if they can find out who did it and be able to turn that information over to the appropriate authorities. So that's a concrete example of something that happened here last month that we're able to assist with, right? Luckily for us, that was an easy one. The sticker was down within an hour, and that's the kind of result we like to see. But nothing makes me happier than calling somebody who bothered to report and telling them they made a difference that day. But another example is our work with schools. We will get a call that maybe a kid experienced an act of bullying or bias in school. And if the administration didn't deal with it appropriately, we're here to investigate the matter, educate this administration on how they could have handled it better, and advocate with that administration or with the school board as needed to make sure that all of the proper resolution is reached and they achieve a teachable moment. Right. And so those are just a little bit of what we're able to do and how we're able to do it. There's a lot behind us. We're a large organization. We're over 400 people across the country, 25. This is one of 25 offices across the country, and we have an extra one in Jerusalem. We have a few research centers that back us up. One is our Center on Extremism. It's probably our most prominent one. This is the group of people that actually track extremists, white nationalists, white supremacist organizations, but extremists on either side. And online, you can go to adl.org. We actually keep a heat map of incidents that we are tracking. And so this is just the screenshot for our community. You can kind of see for some of the turf that we cover, our ADL Heartland covers Missouri, Southern Illinois, and Eastern Kansas. And so you can see kind of what we're dealing with. And as we log stuff, it's a publicly available data set. People can do their own investigations as well. But we're able to catalog exactly what happened, whether or not it was violent, propaganda incidents. And so these incidents run the gamut. Some of these incidents are crimes, and they're turned over to the proper authorities. Some of these incidents are acts of protected speech, but they're still motivated by bias and hate. And so that is why we track them. And what we're specifically looking for here is even when it's something that someone is allowed to do, it's one thing to go online and sit in a chat room or on a message board and say horrible things. It is a whole nother thing if you're motivated to go out into the real world and take action, right? And so as we talked about earlier with our pyramid of hate, how people can move from their attitudes to their actions to violence, we really want to monitor when people are moving from a biased attitude or hateful attitude to somewhere where they're willing to take action so that we can interrupt that cycle before it becomes a problem. Another center that we have is in Silicon Valley. It's our Center on Technology and Society. These folks work with tech companies, social media platforms, where a lot of this hateful rhetoric pervades our world at this point. I mean, whatever, we're all online. We're all on Facebook and Twitter, and we all see the posts and we all see the algorithms that gin us up and get us outraged because it engages us and it keeps us on our screen. And we're able to, go through the terms of service, hold the companies accountable to their own terms, that I agree button that you check when you sign up for something or you install an app on your phone. We're able to go through the terms of service and hold the companies accountable for reports that they don't actually act on. And we're also able to inform that sector of best practices to decelerate and not amplify. Just because it's okay to say something on a platform doesn't mean that everybody should have to read it, right? And so that's the work of our Center on Technology and Society. They just produced a report, I think it was online only, about Minecraft. If you have children, they might play this game. It's very popular, but it's just about how many kids experience harassment or bullying inside of this one video game, right? And we just recently opened a Center for Anti-Semitism Research. This is a fairly new endeavor. It's about coordinating peer-reviewed and scholarly research about exactly what actions are effective in interrupting a bias and hate. We have a good idea, and this is about making sure that the data matches up with our actions and being able to adjust accordingly. And so they're working more with universities and academics and making sure that the data that's available is being applied to what we're trying to accomplish. We also have educational offerings. I'm proud to announce that we're going to be up over 20,000 students that are going to be participating in our No Place for Hate program with a registration deadline. It's not until October, so we have plenty of time to sign more up, but it's a new record for this office. We are going to, it's a school climate program. The entire program is based around the idea that the students and the school community should be self-driven and creating the kind of place that they want to attend. And so an organizing committee led by students, but participating with administrators and with parents, is able to plan out the No Place for Hate program for the year. And I'm just personally very excited about this one, and is where I'm focusing a lot of my energy. They sign a pledge to make their school no place for hate. It's displayed prominently in the school. They do start climate surveys that they can repeat every year to adjust their program as necessary. And they complete 3 activities as a school. It's a school-wide program. So one school, one book, where the entire school reads a book about something that's appropriate for their school climate regarding bias or bullying, and is able to discuss it together and have the same shared experience as a community. And when they complete 3 of these, they get designated as No Place for Hate for the year. And it's really it's just a lovely program. And it's nice to see the kids want to take ownership over their learning environment as opposed to vandalize or ditch school or whatever. So I'm very excited about this one. And then we have long had here in St. Louis a very robust World of Difference Institute. This was founded in Boston. I think St. Louis had this second institute that was open in the country. But we keep a very large roster of facilitators. They're able to provide comprehensive anti-bias training in a variety of settings. So school settings, higher settings of higher learning, workplaces. But it's designed for a group of people who are together day in and day out to take a training together and to go on a journey to learn more about their own identity and how their actions affect other people's and their identities as well. This also, adjacent to our World of Difference Institute, a lot of our facilitators overlap. We provide a lot of more specialized training. We do implicit bias training for law enforcement, as well as very specific training about hate crimes and how to identify them and properly interview when encountering a potential hate crime. And so our World of Difference Institute is really our mechanism for delivering our anti-bias training. We just to be clear, we don't set up like corporate DEI shops. That's not what we do. This is very specifically anti-bias work. And so that's just a quick overview of who we are and what we do. I'd be remiss if I didn't take an opportunity with a microphone to tell everyone that this is all about data. We collect it, we share it, we aggregate it, and we report on it. When we report on it, it's fact. And so if you see something, even if it's not a crime, if it's an act of bias, if it was motivated because of somebody's ethnicity or their skin color or their religion or their sexual orientation or identity or any protected class in Missouri where we have a robust hate crimes law, you should report it. And if you don't, and if it's a crime, you should report it to law enforcement first. If you don't feel comfortable calling them, you can call us and we will make sure that it gets to them. But even non-criminal incidents or flyering from an extremist organization, we ask you to go online and report. When we publish these statistics, it's one of the larger news hits that we do. Last year, we measured anti-Semitic incidents at an all-time high. We've been tracking for about 40 years, over 2,000 incidents that we audited and can provide verifiable evidence with photographs and videos. It's staggering the amount of data that we're able to collect, but we don't collect it on our own. We rely on everyone to let us know. So thank you in advance. If you see something, please say something. And I've got plenty of time for questions, and just thanks again for having me, but just a brief overview of who we are.
Thanks, Jordan. That was great. My mantra in my professional world and in my Olivet world is see something, say something. So I think that is so true. Being in Olivet, we have a grade school, we have faith-based organizations. How do we get the message to them about the No Place for Hate? Is that something that they just have to reach out to you, or is that something that we can help facilitate the connection?
We're onboarding schools through October. It is something that the school needs to sign up for. So there's a designated coordinator for each school. If one school can sign up if they're so inclined, entire districts can sign up. But yes, one person can reach out and we'll make sure to get the registration link over to them. We collect a little bit of information that the schools usually have at their fingertips. It takes about 5 minutes. And then we have an entire onboarding process. Nobody has to do this by themselves. We're here, and I have a very large education committee that just enjoys coming to all of the events, and we participate with you the rest of the time. So throughout the year, it runs from October till May, and hopefully everyone gets designated and continues to participate.
Do you have a large staff here, or is it mainly volunteers?
We've all experienced the pandemic. So we're no different. And our staff, I think, went from 3 to 2 to 1 to COVID to 0. And so hopefully now we're exiting and we're back up to 1 and we're going in the other direction, but there's only one way to go from here. So, but my board, my advisory board is about 45 members strong. And if anybody's looking to get involved, the committees always need help. So yes, mostly volunteers for right now, but hopefully changing soon.
And because you spoke of diversity, is the board, is that also eclectic and diverse group as well?
So, but we do have a plan for the entire organization nationally to make sure that we are meeting our DEI goals as an organization. The net focus for the next couple of years is our advisory boards and making sure that we look like the communities that we're trying to represent, and the ones that we work in. And I think that we all find it a challenge, but we are doing our best, and it comes with changing a lot of the processes that we use and applying some of our own teachings to ourselves. And as a board, we're taking some of our own medicine. And that's hard for some folks, but we're going to get there.
So one of the reasons I asked Jordan to join us today was not just because I've known him, like I said, since he was a toddler, and I'm proud of him, but also because the work he does, I'm very passionate about, both as a mayor and as an educator. And I just want to thank you for joining us, but I know that there's questions out there. So does anyone want to start? Jump in.
I'm a letter writer, and about a month ago, I had 2 letters published in the newspapers, one in the Post-Dispatch and one in the Jewish Light, about the shooting in Highland Park, Illinois, which is where my husband and I raised our daughter for her first 14 years of life. So we took it very much to heart. I'm an Altacocker, means an old fart. And I am totally not computer savvy. And one of the questions I had in these letters was, who's accountable for this young man going off the rails? And one of them is about what is this crazy sites where he was posting all kinds of red flags about evilness that he was probably going to do. When did that become okay? Why did these happen? And who's responsible for that? Somebody needs, who do I see about that, about those crazy sites that let him spew all this hate?
No, it's all right. Thank you for the question and the Yiddish. And my colleague David Goldenberg in Chicago he was there at the parade. So we pretty much got the firsthand account of what happened. First of all, we did investigate the shooter. This was not connected to an underlying extremist ideology, unlike other mass shootings that we have investigated. And so just to make that clear, that this person did not espouse that they did this or allegedly did this because of some sort of bias or hate motivated. I know that it touched the Jewish community in particular simply because it's a Jewish area, a high density Jewish population, but it does not appear to be that that's what the motivation was. That said, it was still a mass shooting and horrific. And where this person was posting their red flags. So the internet is a big place. There are all sorts of unsavory corners. We know because we spend a lot of time there. And who do you see about it? It's until it's incitement to violence, it is protected speech. And I'm not an attorney. Let me just go ahead and say that up front, but we know that we can't have stuff taken down off of message boards unless it violates some sort of corporate terms or the terms of service for the hosting platform. There are rules. And again, it's tough to have them all enforced, A lot of what we do is call to attention to the companies when their own policies are being violated and lean on them to do enforcement. But it's important that you understand, that we keep in fairly close contact with our friends in law enforcement. They're not allowed to just dragnet everybody's Twitter account. That they need a reason to look people up. Correct me if I'm wrong over here, Chief, but you're not allowed to just go willy-nilly and look everyone up. They really do need a reason. Where we come in is that we can keep an eye on things, and we're not that big. We're a fairly large organization, but we're not that large, so we're not able to monitor the entire internet. I don't know if anybody is, but when we do alert law enforcement to some of the hotspots that we keep an eye on when stuff goes on there. Obviously, there are investigators who work for the government that are already in these places, but mostly it comes back to, if you see something, say something. We have a lot of people who participate in voluntary monitoring. It's been a part of our history, but if you're on the internet and you see something, I'm a doom scroller on Reddit. I don't post, but I certainly read it, and when I see something pop up that somebody mentioned something they saw, I message them and I ask them to report it. And not just because it aggregates to our numbers, but mostly because it gets them into the system. We have our own checkbox that you have to agree to the terms when you report, and it defines a relationship of what we can and we can't do, and what we can do with the information once we have the permission. And so getting this stuff into a system, whether it's you're referring it to your local police and saying that you saw a problem and that something needs to be checked out because it seems suspicious, or turning into an organization like ours or others like the Southern Poverty Law Center, who do excellent work in this area as well. There are a lot of organizations out there that need the tip and have the tip line, but we're not going to be able to catch anything that we're not informed. So yeah, that somebody should have said something. Well, the only thing, I'm paraphrasing someone now, but the only thing that I think that everyone can agree on is when something like this happens, there's always somebody that says, oh, well, I'm not surprised. This isn't the first thing they did that raised an eyebrow, right? I'm not like, oh, it's shocking, but I'm not surprised that it was this person that did this. And that's a problem. Everybody, it takes a village.
School program sounded very, very interesting. What schools in our area specifically are involved in that program?
So historically, I know that we've had more schools that participated than are currently signed up. I've got some t-shirts in my office that say Ladue High was no place for hate at one point. And I know that New City School has been a consistent participant for years. We'll be onboarding the entire Parkway School District this fall, and hopefully more to follow. But again, it's a large region, so those are the ones in this particular community, and got schools in Kansas City as well, and some other ones. So just to repeat the question in case anybody couldn't hear, it was asking me if there was blowback to our programs because of school board politics, I think, and politics and intersection of politics and educational content these days. I think first of all, I haven't experienced any. I'm sure that I will. But I think the advantage of this program is really that the organizing committees specifically for our No Place for Hate program include parents. It includes parents. The organizing committees can design their own activities, right? That they have the ability to pick the activity that's suitable for their school environment and what they're trying to work on as a community. But also all of our suggested activities and activity bank, not because you have to pick, but because to make the program easier. Those are all also available online publicly for anybody to look at at noplaceforhate.org, and everybody can know what's going on ahead of time. I know the debate was very vigorous last year around content in educational settings, but I have to say, it seemed that the consensus was that people wanted to know what was happening in their school. They felt they have the right to know what's happening in their child's school. And I don't think that this conflicts with that in any way. I think it actually makes it more accessible to parents. And so I'm really hoping that it's part of the solution, not a part of the problem.
If we can use the microphones, that's so people online can hear. Thanks.
Okay. I've got a question. Now, if the program is in the school, you know that there are some students that are bullies. And there's nothing being done about it. Not only are these students bullies in the school, these students are bullies on the bus. And they know about it. And it's just like, oh, well, they don't take any actions. Because I know of this personally. And these students, they go to Spady. They're in grade school. So if they start now and nothing is done about it, just think what's going to happen later on. Okay, so how do you approach that? And what do you recommend for that?
There are not enough hours in the day for me to get at every single school with a bully at it. I mean, I at least went to grade school. I won't speak for anybody else in the room, but there are not enough hours in the day for me to try and fix one school by myself. But that's not the plan. The plan is to deliver into the schools a program and the tools in which to address this themselves. And what that looks like is having the kids commit publicly, right, to make their school a type of place where they want to foster learning and not to have to deal with bullying, right? By having to form a community, put your name to it, display that prominently, and to show everyone that you've made this commitment, right? That's the first step. The second is to be honest about where the school is at. The next step it's a climate survey, right? It's what kind of, where's the school at? Where's the student body at? Where's the administration at? And what they would like to see, be able to assess and see what kind of change they can make over the course of the year. But we also provide a robust set of incident response tools as a part of the program. Frankly, that's probably why we get a lot of buy-in from administration officials, is because we're coming with do's and don'ts for how to react when this stuff happens, because we know it will. Right? And I mean, bullying is almost a normal part of childhood, but when it comes to whether or not kids are using bias and intimidation and these kinds of tactics in their bullying, we're in a situation where there's a right way and a wrong way to handle it. You can make it worse, and learning to do no harm, right? And to turn these incidents into teachable moments before they become actual crimes. I mean, or God forbid, hate crimes, which also happens in schools. And so the more resources that we can deliver, and the more we can have the parents, the students, and the administration and the teachers all on board with an idea that this is something that needs to be addressed proactively, the better our chances are of interrupting that period of hate before it does escalate into violence, which is the ultimate concern.
Young lady over there who says she's an old lady or an Alta Cocker, I've got you beat by at least 20 years. Okay. First off, I'd like to thank Jordan and his organization, because they do very extensive and work that needs to be done, and they're much appreciated in the community, as well as organizations similar to that, to ADL. My comment is, I think that most organizations of ADL and that type are looking at, they're trying to be proactive as much as they can with the education in the schools and in the community. They are collectors of information, but being proactive, they are also working after the fact. I have to go back, I guess, maybe 85 years, 90 years, when different than we are today. What we learn early in life. By the time you're 6 years old, usually, you know who your friends are in school, you know who the bullies are, you know who you have to collect as a group to fight the bullies. We were taught differently. And what we learned at home. And my question is, where are the parents in all what's going on today? I grew up in a small town in one of those blue dots you had up there in eastern Missouri, where we had a small community, a Jewish community of about 50 people back in the 30s. Synagogues up and down the river, all the way from St. Louis to Memphis to New Orleans. Every 50 miles it was a day trip on a horse. And the communities got together. Greg's laughing, but that was the truth. The roads were dirt roads back when I was a kid. Olive Street was two lanes wide 60 years ago. But anyway, people knew who you could disciplined in our homes. If we were at a friend's house, we were disciplined there. We came home. If you were disciplined in school, you came home, you got it twice. You learned quickly not to disobey or be disrespectful to other people. And it happened to that. And I blame a lot of it on social media.
I mean, when we measure what we do, one of the things that we measure internally is how many times we speak out. And we have to call it out. And I know that sometimes people say, oh, talking isn't doing, but talking is doing. When you're trying to combat all of social media, reacting and coming back up with facts and saying that things aren't okay and keeping extremism on the fringes as opposed to allowing it to become mainstream. And these softer measures, I mean, it feels like something that's softer, it's hard to measure, but these rhetorical measures are important, right? When combating ideologies that all of the organizations that we track, they overlap. People join multiple ones. They all move from one to the next. And the ideologies evolve, and we can trace it in their manifestos from the pinnacle of the mass violence that they perpetrate. For instance, in the Buffalo shooting that happened at the grocery store, within 48 hours, we went through the screed that the shooter posted online. 62% of it was plagiarized directly from the Christchurch shooting at a mosque in New Zealand. And so the targets may be different. The ideology is the same. They cite each other, they canonize each other, they write their names on their weapons, right? The people that came before them. And we can track the evolution of what happened when it reaches the point where it's something that we're able to document, and how we interrupt it earlier in that pyramid is what we're all focused on. And I mean, where it starts, I'm not in charge of parenting anywhere but my house, but I'm going to try and do my part there. And if we see it, and if we see it here, anywhere in our community, before we want to intervene before it turns violent, we want to call it out. And sometimes that means sending it to somebody we work with. It's not always going to be me, and we're not always going to take credit for an assist or whatever it is we do, but getting it where it needs to go, that's the important part. It's comment for a comment. You didn't ask a question.
I think that bias and prejudice is a social thing. And in my lifetime, I see where it's decreased considerably. I'm far less prejudiced than my grandparents or my parents. And my daughter obviously is less prejudiced than I am. And I don't believe that I'm prejudiced. It seems to me that the base that you're talking about, your pyramid, is not increasing, but it's getting smaller, perhaps, of the pyramids. Perhaps the whole pyramid is decreasing also. And it seems like the acts that are occurring are extremist. And I don't know how you can, like you said, there'll always be bullies somewhere. You learn how to treat bullies. I don't know how you can ever exterminate the extremists or even control the extremist.
I mean, we're not trying to stop, we're not trying to control or eliminate anybody. It's about interrupting the action before action is taken, right? Peaceful protest should be encouraged. And if someone's hateful ideology is protected speech, I mean, we will stand up for that protection. We're firm believers in the First Amendment. We do a lot of the amicus brief filings and those kinds of things. But this is about stopping things before they do become crimes, or making sure that once it crosses into that territory where people are taking action, that, you know, it's stopped before they become dangerous. As far as what our biases, I think bias is implicit, that we all have them. What that looks like is different. I don't see debates in our legislature about interracial marriage. I see them about what sports team kids plays on, but there's definitely bias involved in how these things are perceived and who's being attacked. And as far as the level of activity or belief, it's easier for me to describe it in terms of anti-Semitism because it's something that we segment out and track more closely, so I have better data. But we see when we do like polling surveys of anti-Semitic attitudes that we can go back decades and look at the data, that it's fairly constant, right? That there is a segment of society, our society here in America, that holds these beliefs. It wavers within the margin of error. If anything, it's actually down a little bit. But what we see are the acts that increase, right? And they ramp up over time and up to record levels. It's something that we all feel. And our data correlates with other data. So if you look at like FBI hate crimes data that gets released every year, that during COVID, there was a spike in anti-Asian violence, which exactly what you would expect just from having lived through the time period. But underlying all of that data is far and away, if a hate crime is committed based on race, a majority, more than any other statistic combined, it was committed against a Black person. Far and away, if a hate crime was committed based on religion, majority, more than all other religions combined, it was committed against a Jewish person. And these aren't our numbers, right? This is coming from the government. So these, I mean, yes, it feels different generationally, what the bias is. I think that it's fair to say that we all have it, but I think our biggest concern is that people seem to be acting on it more. And that's what we're trying to find the best way to prevent.
Okay, I'll make mine quick. Obviously, when events happen and we see all of the horrible things that are happening, and those are studied, are you aware of any research out there that has studied areas that seem to have less of this? And are there correlations between more involved parents, or I don't know, what can we learn from areas of, God forbid, hopefully there are some where less of this is happening? And is there anything we can take away from that?
The answer to your question. When we do survey places, the baseline is so different that we're honestly it's looking for it sometimes. So like we'll do like a global 100 survey, but like the best we can do is like attitudes by country, you know, and some of it comes across the way you would expect and some of it doesn't, and that's surprising. But like as far as like parenting techniques, like I don't know if there's any kind of granular work out there. If you have a book recommendation, I would like it. I could use it. No one's born wanting to do this, right? We know that much. No one comes out wanting to hate like this. And things that are learned can be unlearned. And if you take those two fundamental assumptions, then there is something that you can do, and we're going to figure it out.
Like this microphone. I just want to say that I had a long relation with the ADL. They were like, when I was the chief of police here, they were on my speed dial. Jason's predecessor, Karen Aresti, she had a relationship with the local law enforcement. And the first time that I called her was we started getting flyers throughout our community. And they were stuck on mailboxes and stuff like that. And it was doing hate. They were doing this in the middle of the night. And so I called and she said, yeah, it's in different parts of the community. They're going around the whole St. Louis area. So it wasn't just Olivet. Second time, this was in the early 2000s. Might have been right when I first took over chief. So this was a big thing for me. We rented the community center, or someone rented the community center to the Smith family reunion. Well, at 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon, after everybody came home, they showed up. They were dressed in their Nazi attire. They had flags. They were putting in the community center, in the gym area. First person I called, Karen Rusty, she said, well, they're having this big rally down by the arch and they needed a place to have their rally. So they tried to put one of their Nazi flags up outdoors, outside the community center. And I said, well, you can't do that. You can't put it on the outdoor of our community center. You take your thing inside. We couldn't stop them. Then they left all of that and they went to Maryland Heights. Maryland Heights already knew they were coming. Thanks to I gave them a call. They arrested a bunch of them after they all got drunk up. But the next thing, Karen Aresti was involved with the St. Louis area police chiefs, and she sent the Holocaust Museum. We sent all of our officers to the Holocaust Museum, and it was well received by all the officers, and not just in Olivet, but throughout the St. Louis area. And I hope that continues. I think that that's a great thing for our officers to see. But I would see Karen Aresti around all the time, at our meetings and stuff like that. And she would say, this is something's on the radar, just to let you know. And from that data. And then the last thing with the ADL, and I appreciate the ADL, they sent myself and 5 other police chiefs from the St. Louis area to Israel for counterterrorism training. And it's a controversy thing. A lot of people were very controversial about it. It was nothing what they all said about. And I appreciate the ADL, what you do in our community in Olivet. If something happens, people call. I mean, they call us, they call the police all the time. And I think that that's, we're on our way to being, you see something, you call. And I appreciate everything you do and your organization. And if something happens, I'm calling. So thank you very much.
Greg left, he could tell you more details about the museum than I, but I believe that they announced their reopening day is November 2nd, and Law Enforcement Society is the name of the program. It will be restarting. I've been training for a very long time, and I have a couple more months to get it right. But we will be restarting the program. It's been very well received by anybody who's taken it before. The foreign trips have been suspended during COVID. I don't know the status of it being restarted or not, but that's what happened. But thank you. I think it was 2009 was that rally downtown. There was a counter one in the Forest Park. It's a long history, including the National Socialist Party holding their annual convention here in Missouri one time. But yeah, the relationship with our relationship with law enforcement, it's not something that we get to take credit for everywhere, but thank you for bringing it up, because we do work hard on it, and we just appreciate you letting us assist.
So in closing, I just want to share a couple things and a few announcements, but when Cheryl Lynn said she likes to write letters, we got a couple for you to write. Some might be to our school board. The president of the Ladue School Board is a resident in Olivet and active on our Parks Commission. And, encourage her to bring it to the school board to look at Ladue schools for being one of the no place for hate districts. That would be amazing. And I'm sure that many of you will be speaking with her. I know I will. And we run a lot of summer camps. Do they do this with the summer camps as well? The no place for hate? Takes too long to get, okay. And the camps are too short. Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Well, we have our municipals, so now we can have a special. We had municipals last week. You got to learn how to live and work and be a part of a municipal organization. So they spent a couple days at Public Works and I think with Carlos, but didn't they? Not toddler age, sorry. But we'll let you know when he's appropriate age. So Jordan, thank you for spending so much time with us this morning. I thought the questions were fabulous and I hope that everyone's walking away with more to think about and that we just broaden our horizons when we're out and about in public and the see something, say something is just so crucial. And ADL is an incredible resource to our community. And I know that our new Chief Beth is going to be working closely with you as well. And I'm glad that Lemmy was able to be here earlier. So we have a couple exciting things coming up in the next few weeks I just want to spotlight. Our next Coffee with the Mayor guest will be our own Beverly Tucker Knight. And it will be before we get ready to reopen the parks and talk about some of the park changes and get an update on some other things going on with the park. So it's a very exciting time. The 9th annual Turkey Trot is back and registration has officially opened. So if you visit olivetmo.com, you can get registered. We're excited to continue our partnership with muscular dystrophy and our firefighters and first responders have been on Price and Olive the last few Tuesdays. They have one more Tuesday and that's next week, August 19th, no, in 2 weeks, August 19th at the intersection of Olive and Price from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. You'll see them out there with the boots in the heat. And then Warson Park, we had, I believe, was she a high school student or a college student saying with the parks being renovated, she misses movies in the park. So she was part of the impetus of us starting back. So on August 27th, we're having Sing 2. And then if you'll mark your calendars, Olivet Night Out is Wednesday, August 31st. So start getting your neighbors together and let us know here. And the council members will come out, the employees come out, the fire department, the first responders, the police department, and we go from party to party all night and visit with you. And if there's little children in your neighborhood, let them know so we can bring the fire trucks and ambulance and they get to, check them out. Thursday, September 1st, we'll roll up our sleeves to save lives. So if anyone wants to give blood, we'll have the American Red Cross, I believe, here in this building. And then the Olivet community-wide yard sale is September 17th and 18th. And all this can be found on our website. And I want to thank everyone. I also want to thank, and I think this is Kiana Fleming's in the back of the room. And Kiana is our communications director, and she takes care of getting all the information out, but also she was in charge of all your special treats this morning. But if you don't get this week in Olivet, she has every Monday, she has an overview of what the highlights are coming out. So you can sign up for that online. And that's how people saw and learned about this morning, I think, as well. So thank you, Kiana. And Jordan, it was such a pleasure to have you here. And I said I won't tell him I knew you when you were in diapers, so I won't say that. So thank you once again. And we hope that you'll come back often, and we look forward to having a great partnership with Olivet.